Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So on Tuesdays we talk about race. And there's no secret that this is a channel about race. I started this channel so that we wouldn't lose the conversation of race. I think sometimes, and honestly a lot of times, when events like George Floyd happen, and this is just one, that's just the most recent one, or Ahmaud Arbery, it happens and we talk about it and then it kind of fizzles off. But there's always another one. There always comes another one. And I truly feel like this was different this time because we didn't have anything else to do. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Life is crazy. Everyone's trying to figure out, whatever this new normal is. And a lot of us have been stuck in the house. So we had no choice but to really see a George Floyd situation happen firsthand and see with our own eyes. And George Floyd was different because I know in a lot of cases there's been when it comes to police brutality, there's been, you have Mike Brown. Well, he was reaching for the gun. Okay. Then it's like you have Philando Castile where he was reaching for his gun, so to say, even though the police officer told him to get his license and he let the officer know that there was a firearm in the car, but I digress. And then you have someone like Tamir Rice, who's 12 years old and gets shot and killed by police literally 2 seconds after the police officer arrives at the park, where you have a 12-year-old boy playing with a toy gun, which saying that doesn't really seem out of the norm, but it caused this officer enough to fire his weapon at a 12-year-old boy, shooting him and killing him while he's playing in the park. The officer got out of the car literally gets out of the car and fires his weapon. It was literally 2 seconds. There's a video on YouTube if you want to watch it, but his name's Tamir Rice. But I couldn't let this week go by without speaking on what happened to, little 5-year-old Cannon Hinnant. And there's been so many things, right, going on around social media. So many people have opinions on this. And honestly, I just felt like it was best to put my thoughts into words, but I didn't want to jump the gun in a sense of just speaking, just misspeaking, because I know this is very sensitive. And let me start off by saying this. Little Cannon was 5 years old. I have a 4-year-old. She's 4.5. She'll be 5 in December. My husband and I's daughter, Joy. She'll be 5. And I cannot even fathom the thought of her just being around 5 years. It just does not make sense. There's so much life left in so many people when they lose their life early, especially a small child, where they're about to start school. They're, excited for school and think 5. I mean, gosh, my 4.5-year-old the other day wrote her name on a paper for the first time. And it's like, some kids that are 5 are just writing their names on paper, let alone living their life to the fullest that they can live it. So I just want to say, honestly, I don't have words. My heart really goes out to their family for losing their child. And it's just unfathomable that one day your kid is outside playing and that same day your kid is just gone because of someone so senseless and a monster that decides to. Now there's so many unknowns going around this, and unfortunately people are obviously comparing the George Floyd to Cannon. I'm not sure why. I don't understand why we compare tragedies. It is honestly the weirdest thing to me. Like on my personal Facebook page, if I talk about the mistreatment of Black people, someone wants to bring up the Holocaust. It doesn't make sense. It's like, it's not a competition here of which tragedy is worse. It's not a competition here of which extermination of a group of people is worse. They're both bad, and Why can't we just focus on whatever subject is at hand? Why do we have to bring up something else to say, well, look, for instance, with Cannon and George Floyd, I know it's well, look, this black guy kills this white kid, and you guys are saying Black Lives Matter, and what is the no one's outraged about this, no one's outraged about what's happening here. And the reality is that people are. No one is saying that black people are completely faultless and there's not monsters out there. Of course there is. No one is saying that, and no one's defending his killer. Absolutely no one is defending that. Not that I've seen anyway. No one's defending that this man literally belongs in prison and he should not go anywhere. No matter what is surrounding, what happened that day. I even know people who are saying, well, he was at his, this guy was at, Cannon's parents, their house the night before, and, they were doing drugs or whatever. And honestly, I think I'm just going to be honest, I think that's a cop-out. It's like to me saying that, well, George Floyd was on fentanyl or George Floyd was high when the police killed him. Like, what does that even matter? It doesn't. It doesn't matter at all. Someone died senselessly. What is the point of bringing it up? Okay, sure, whatever. All right, his dad may have known this guy and may have done whatever, but what is the point in that? And that's how I feel. Like, when people bring things up that really just don't have anything to do with it, like, why can't we just focus on the fact that this monster killed this little boy? And for some reason, we throw in and tie it to race. I actually just read a report today that Cannon's actual father said that it had nothing to do with race. And he was actually upset and frustrated at the fact that people were saying that it was because the little boy was white, because it had nothing to do with that. And I know there's a lot of people that are like, well, George Floyd had nothing to do with race. And while sure, the officer didn't call him the N-word, the officer didn't use a racial slur, the reason people tie that is because statistically, would that have happened if he were white? Statistically, it tells us that the chances are a lot slimmer if that were the case. And I know it's probably sounding like I'm comparing them in this video, and I'm not. It's honestly heartbreaking that we can't just look at something and mourn that thing. And the fact that people are using it to push an agenda, I don't care what his dad did. I don't care what his dad had going on in his life. I don't. His dad lost a 5-year-old. His dad lost his kid. His mom lost her son. His sisters lost their brother. It does not matter. I feel for the family, because I feel like, me personally, that people are pushing this in a comparison to seem like black people are evil too. And no one's even saying that white people are evil or to blame or the reason why we're in this. I think some people are confused and think that black people are blaming white people. And the reality is that we have a system in place that oppresses people. And I understand that people being white may feel like people are giving them dirty looks. People are staring at them funny. People there, may have instances in your life where you're the minority. And I completely understand that. But this is not what this argument is about. This argument and this fight has literally nothing to do with me or my husband having been called the N-word before, which has happened. This has nothing to do with that. And everything to do with the fact that there is a system that works against us to oppress, whether you feel it like it is or not, that we see statistically that it does, you are at a disadvantage statistically if you are black. For instance, like I talk about a lot, is maternal rates in the black community. Being a woman, a black woman, I'm 4 times more likely to die than my white counterparts. And this literally stems from everything, from so much. I even tell my husband when we talk, and I'm like, look at predominantly black neighborhoods. If you're in the South, if you are in the southern part of the United States, then you know what Publix is. And I always tell my husband, if we're traveling, if we're doing anything, I already know that I'm in a good area or a decent area if there's a Publix around. Like, because you're not going to find a Publix where there normally is predominantly black people. You're not going to find a Whole Foods. There's a thing called the Whole Foods effect, where if a Whole Foods is placed in a neighborhood, and we've seen it happen, I think, in Brooklyn, or Bronx, where the Whole Foods is placed in there, and it literally drove everything around it up in price. And so gentrification, and so while yes, those things are very separate and very important, like, why can't we just look at a case like Cannon and just all mourn and be upset together, like, just at the fact that a 5-year-old is no longer breathing and living his life because of a senseless murder. It's heartbreaking. It really is. And honestly, I've really talked about race more than I've wanted to in this video, because I don't feel like that this is about that. And I think that we can mourn tragedies. They're not mutually exclusive. If I care about one thing, it's not that, well, if I care about this, I don't care about that. Just that I'm bringing light to this. I'm talking about this. I'm putting this on the forefront of our minds. And honestly, I even created this page, this YouTube page, so that people that may not be educated on race can be, to some extent. It's not fair, I feel like, for me to ask you to care and, me not even share my heart with people or with you in any way. And it just breaks my heart that instead of actually caring for his family, we've used it as a tool to say, well, look at this. Why should we care about this when we got to do that? And it's like, that's not about that at all. We can care about more than one thing at a time. I mean, I have 2 kids. If I am attending to this kid, it doesn't mean I don't care about my other child. It just means that I'm attending to this one right now. It has nothing to do with the fact that I have to be like, well, this is wrong. This is, blow it up because this is what black people do. We're saying Black Lives Matter and trying to defend it. And it's like, well, yeah, no one's saying that there's not monsters that are black people out there. No one's saying that. We're just saying that these things are wrong. And honestly, it just makes me so sad that it's pinned up against a tragedy like this 5-year-old's Cannon, where it's just pent up against that. And it honestly, my personal thoughts, makes me wonder if we really care, if we're just desensitized to the point where we're willing to reach out and prove our point more than we're actually willing to care. And that's sad. That's a place I personally don't want to be. I've had my own personal convictions about things, where I, will go into depth, like I said last video, about my personal experience with abortion. But how can I be an advocate, for women, to choose life for their babies, but yet I don't advocate or care for the kids being raped and murdered at the border? Or how can I care about this trafficking thing, like with Jeffrey Epstein, but I'm not caring about the missing indigenous girls that are literally disappearing from reservations? And that's my personal conviction, where I felt like I couldn't pick or choose any longer what I care about. If I care about it, I have to care about the whole thing. I can't care about parts of it. And that's just my thoughts. But you guys are, I always say you guys are amazing. You're beautiful. You're incredible. I love you guys. You are just amazing. And the reason why I continue to make videos and do what I do, because I want to help people understand and bring awareness to things that maybe people just haven't thought about, and conversations with a person like me, who I air out all my dirty laundry, where I talk about my personal experience with mental health and my personal experience with, the abortion that I had. And I'll get into that soon, maybe next week. But I thank you guys so much. Thank you for liking and subscribing and sharing and just being here. You guys are incredible, and I love you. And I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I will see you on Friday. Have a blessed week. Love you guys. Bye.